to blue sails on Anglesey in North Wales. My name's David Walker. I'm an artist. I've been a watercolour artist for over 30 years and I'm here to do a new collection of paintings. Now, while I was looking at this scene and planning it in my mind and figuring out how I was going to produce the finished watercolour, taking photographs, making sketches. This was the sketch I made while I was there relaxing. I did it in pencil first and then in charcoal and developed it slowly, and this was the result. And there was a lady living next door to where we were, and she said, "You've got the cragginess of the mountain," and that's basically what I'm after if you look at the photograph. So yeah, I'm happy with the composition. Might change the foreground a little bit. The tide might be a little bit nearer in, but as a sketch, I'm very happy. So yeah, it was pencil, charcoal. I'm just hoping the charcoal actually doesn't affect the watercolour. Here we go. I've stuck the paper down. I've never used this paper before, so I'm not sure how it's going to react to the watercolour, but this exercise basically is to see if the colour combinations that we come up with. I'm going to be using, because we're working quite small, I usually work bigger and the finished painting will be a lot bigger, and I'd use this hake brush to do the sky, but because we're coming down in size, I'm using an inch flat brush. It's nice and soft bristles, and that'll be used for the big washers, because we've come down in size with the brush, you know, to suit. Okay, like I say, that'll be used to do the nice sky washers. And then we use a number 6 round brush and a number 2 rigger if we need any small details like the rocks in the foreground. So they're the brushes we'll use. Got nice clean water. These paints were on the plate from the last painting I did, and that's a little magic trick I've learned to clean them up. So I've left the blue on and a little bit of Payne's grey, so it's ultramarine blue and Payne's grey that we could use in the sky. So the cragginess that the lady next door was talking about was emphasised by the way the sun was striking it and highlighting it, and like I say, that's what we want to try and achieve. The whole idea of this set of paintings, the prelim paintings, is just to show you how I, as a professional artist, plan the painting. It just doesn't happen, you know. You don't go to a big piece of watercolour paper and bang, it happens. You have to practice a couple of times. You have to look at what you're doing, get to know the mountain, the shape of the mountain, and then when it comes to doing the finished piece, you'll see later on that I can draw it quite easily because I've practiced. And if this one hadn't have worked, I've done other, I'll show you later on in the course other sketches that I've done, because the collection I'm working on is going to be hopefully 10 to a dozen different paintings. So that's a bit of the background of what I'm hoping to teach you here. Okay, I'll stop waffling on now. I think I've done enough waffling. So we've not used the paper before, as I say. It's going to be a surprise to me. And let's get into nice clean water with the flat brush, and we'll soon find out how it reacts. So a nice easy wash. I'm just following the outline of the mountains just so we get a nice crisp finish on the mountains in this case. Sometimes you want them to blend in with mist. Some of these probably will do by the time on the main piece. So I'm just going to see how the light blue goes. The paper's cockling straight away, as you can see, but it's bound to. It's only cheap paper. The whole point of the exercise is to try out for the finished piece. And now I'm adding some darker blue. There's the photograph that I took of the effect that I want to achieve. Doesn't do the job as good as your memory, you know. By looking at my sketch, it takes me right back to the actual time I was sketching, and it was really stunning. The thing seemed to, you know, the mountain seemed to glow. The sun was behind me, and it was just catching, just at the right angle to just catch that mountain. So I've been looking at a lot of Turner paintings lately, because the way Turner makes things glow in a painting is incredible, and we'll get into that later, but that's what I'm aiming to do. Right, so I'm just pulling out a bit of that blue now to create some clouds, get some Payne's grey in there to get some shadows going. I'm quite interested here to see what kind of a watercolour sky I can get on this paper. I'm not holding out too much hope for it, but that's why I'm just taking a little bit of time on it. It's good fun doing the preliminary sketches as well. You know, you can, because there's no pressure to get a finished painting, you can just have fun, really. Like I said earlier, there we go, we're going really dark now. But like I said earlier, I don't usually include this part of the job, and I'm sure it'd be very helpful for people who are A, wanting to paint nice big watercolours, and B, planning going away somewhere to do the actual painting. Still on Payne's grey and ultramarine. There is, and we're just now, I think we'll get just an idea of the stretch of water that we're dealing with. There is ultramarine blue in Payne's grey. It's a mixture of Payne's grey, ultramarine and lamp black, invented by an artist called Payne, would you believe? Watercolour artist. What I like about it, the way it separates on on decent watercolour paper, it makes lovely textures in your skies. Just keeping my eye on that up there. Always have a handful of tissue at the ready, you know, for dabbing up. That horizon line's quite important to be pretty level. So now what makes obviously the shiny mountain stand out from everything else is the mountains here at the back are pure, incredible. On the photograph you look how incredibly dark they are compared. Thing with watercolour though, you start trying to make things too dark, it loses its luminosity, so you just have to just bring it down a little bit. So I want that line between the background mountains and the foreground mountain to be, I've called the painting Carved by the Sun, and that's the whole thing. And the other thing I'm just pondering while I'm working is there's the distant mountains on the other side, and we're carving it out, and then the ridge there up at the top there was also in shadow. I'm going to have another go at this sky. Sometimes I'm a bit pig-headed and I think I'll make it work, but it's just cockling far too much. Yeah, the other thing I was pondering, at the bottom of the distant mountains and the one that's going to be shining out, there's a lot of houses, you know, guest houses. The road itself goes through the mountain at points, so I just want to leave a little idea of something going on. For that though, I'm doing let's have a little go at this foreground, because the darker we make the foreground, of course, the better the depth of field will be in the painting. So I think that's enough for now, and we'll have a go at adding another colour now. And I've got a choice here between raw sienna and raw umber for the first kind of undercoat for the mountain and the foreground. I'm going to use my number 6 round brush. Just mix up just a little bit of raw and to echo, we'll put some in the mountains. It's kind of like the underlying colour. Raw umber, sorry. I had a choice, you see, between raw sienna and raw umber, and I've gone for the umber first to get these dark, craggy bits. I've got a feeling I should have gone the other way around. You know, I should have gone for the lighter colour, but you'll see the development of that as we go. So I'm pretty well using a dry brush here to get that, I'm going to say it again, that cragginess. By not having too much water, it'll skim and leave highlights. It'll just catch the top surface. This is very smooth paper though, so again. So here we go with the raw sienna, which I'm thinking I should have used first. You know, I was just had a little talk about Turner. I'm sure he probably uses yellow ochre, but this raw sienna is a lovely light colour that shines as well, which is my substitute for the ochre. And I think I should have put this colour should have gone on first, basically, and that's another decision made for the main piece. See how many things could have been this far into the main piece and done it wrong, and I would never have been happy with it. So these are things that you can iron out. Anyway, we'll carry on with this piece. There's no point in not learning more. So that's kind of like the rocky part. Now, just having a bit of fun with the raw sienna, mixing it with the umber in the foreground. Now what I'm doing here is adding some lemon yellow for green, of course. In my work, I've got a 7 or 8 colour palette, and that's all I use. I find it's far simpler, and you can concentrate on painting pictures rather than how many colours you've got. I can't believe some people, they've got hundreds and hundreds. They do swatches, and that's the hobby, I suppose, collecting stuff. So that's the green area started, and now I'm just going to put a nice line of the lighter raw sienna now for the beach. Still quite like the way the mountain looks even at this stage. You know, that thing, the composition thing, there we go with the tissue again. Certain points I want to be right, but the composition is dead right. It's exactly what I wanted. Okay, so just adding some more horizontal lines into the water, just using a dampish brush. Using the paint I've already put down, and the charcoal as well. Obviously that's going to spread. Looking at that sky again now. I've decided now I'm going to try and just scumble it to make it... I'm basically doing things that I'd do on a proper piece of watercolour paper, and it's not responding, but as you've seen, we've made 3 or 4 decisions for the main piece already. I'm sure you've all been at this stage, you know, trying to rescue a sky. I've left it in because it just shows you that everybody struggles at times. So another attempt at pulling some clouds out, and I think what I'm thinking now is we're going to just dab up the over excess, and probably get around to letting it dry for excuse me, letting it dry for a while. So there you go. I've let it dry now. It's flattened out quite nicely. It's not bad actually, this paper. Feels quite nice. Obviously you wouldn't overload it with water like I have for that sky, but generally it's a nice little effect. You can see the mountains standing out, the foreground is bringing everything forward. And I quite like in the bottom left there where the 2 browns have nicely mingled for a sandy colour. And that basically gives us an idea how the mountain's going to look when we use it, you know, that way. So I'm just going to try and get away with some bold. So that's coming forward by making it darker. You'll find in a lot of the courses that I do, you could actually stop many times, you know, and have a nice painting. But what I tend to do is take the painting on what I call to destruction. I'll try everything. I'll try like I am doing in the sky there, you know, just to see if we can get a nice finish. Now I'm just trying to emphasise the size of the different distant mountains by just putting a little bit of texture on them and getting them to flow down to the sea. This is important again for the main piece, so I know roughly how dark to make the distant mountains compared to the one in the foreground. It's all about tonal values. So we're using the big brush so I don't mess too much. I'm just using some pretty dark brown raw umber to define some of this cragginess a little bit more. So I think I'm happy with that now. I think it's got its place in the painting. Might do a bit more on the sky, a little bit more on these mountains perhaps. But I think that tonal offset is just about right as I've got it for that area. Just try and emphasise the roadway and the things that are going on at the bottom of the mountain. Of course, in water, big question is, do we try and get a reflection or not? In the main piece I think I'll probably just go for a hint of reflection. And again, another decision I've made is I'll probably go for just this area that I'm now doing ripples in will probably be the foreground, level all the way across. Just going for some interest in the water. Right, so mixing some pretty dark stuff now, blue and grey again, just to see if I want to go for the tide being at this point, you know, with rocks showing and seaweed. So I'm bringing some brown into there. For the rocks. Maybe thinking doing a busy foreground like this is kind of taking interest from the mountain. So again, it's good that that's happening, because I can show you again yet another example of decision made by doing a preliminary drawing, preliminary colour sketch. Well, there's the proof, because what I do in the next part is work from that sketch to produce the big 20 by 16 watercolour. 20 by 16 because that's a standard size that will fit into a standard frame, and that's the whole point. Get nice big bold colours on the paper. You can see even off this short part of the video, there's plenty of times when you can stop and you can see also the influence that I was talking about from Turner. Okay, so hope you can see the value of this course, and I'll see you in the first lesson of the main course. My name's David Walker. I've been an artist 30 odd years. If you want to learn how to paint nice, free and easy watercolours, come along and I'll see you in the first lesson. See you soon. Bye.